Hi, and welcome to the Red Tunic Podcast, a podcast where I look to rediscover what makes gaming fun and enjoyable by having positive conversations with those related to the industry. My name is Link, and today I'm joined by Dave Oshry, runner of New Blood Interactive, publishers of titles such as Dusk, A Medieval, Ultrakill, Gloomwood, and the newly released Faith The Unholy Trinity. Hi, Dave. How are you doing today?
Good. How you doing, Link?
I'm doing all right.
Can't believe you're on a Red Tunic podcast and your name is Link. What a coincidence.
You would be shocked how long it took me to think of that pun and run with it, to be honest. Um, for me, it's Halloween. I don't know what you guys do there, and I know yesterday it would have been for you. Do you guys do anything Halloween wise in New Zealand?
We're not as Halloweeny. It's hard to get as much stuff. Halloween was yesterday, obviously. Kids go trick or treating and stuff. People have Halloween parties, but it's not like the States where there's giant spirit Halloween stores everywhere and everybody's house is all done up. And it's not as much of a thing down here for sure.
So what I'm really hearing is there's no 9 foot Home Depot skeleton stuck up on
There,
people's lawns.
no, we got like a 6 foot one for PAX Australia that we had at the booth, but that's about as big as it gets.
I don't know if that's a fortunate thing or an unfortunate thing, just because I have seen a few of the, giant ones myself, and they are obscenely large, and I don't know if I want the hassle of having to, actually deal with one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm into decorating the house for Halloween. We just didn't get it, have enough time to get it done this year. I'm down to go against the trend.
Well, hopefully then for next year, after you're a little more settled in the new house, congratulations, by the way. That's always a great milestone to hit.
Thank
But,
you.
hopefully for next year, you guys will be well settled and you can go ham or whatever the Halloween equivalent term would be.
Yeah, New Zealand, go. I don't know, go nuts.
So Dave, for those that might not be fully aware of who you are, if you don't mind giving maybe like just a quick brief who you are, what you do for those listening.
Yeah, so I run New Blood Interactive. We develop our own games, publish our own games, QA, port, market, and PR our own games, mostly retro bloody stuff. We're known for retro FPS boomer shooters such as Dusk, and Medieval, and Ultrakill, as well as indie horror like Faith, the upcoming immersive sims Gloomwood, and Fallen Aces, and for posting a lot on Twitter, me and David and Dylan and Hakita and the gang, as it were. Yeah, that's what we do. We love you and we hate money.
And thank you for that brief explanation. And that kind of leads into a question I did want to ask. Um,
Sure.
Now, I'm sorry if you've been asked this a lot and it's just a headache, but the approach that you guys take, well, you specifically because it's your company, but
Right.
everyone else kind of joins in on the fun. But the approach that you take to Twitter and with sites, like We Hate Money or what have you,
Yeah.
um, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. Uh, where did you find the confidence to just go for that? Because there's other developers I've spoken to that um, have mentioned how you do things, and it's they're kind of in the same vein of wanting to do that or being in awe of it, and I'm certainly in awe of it. So if you don't mind, even if it's just a very brief, because you're tired of explaining it, but where did you find the confidence just to say screw it and go for it?
Been doing that since the beginning, and I've been doing it for 10, 15 years in games. I was back when I was writing about games or doing marketing for others people's games. I was always just like, I'm just gonna scream at the top of my lungs until you pay attention. And we kind of just carried that over to New Blood, and eventually, I think people used to think I would just go away. But eventually we got kind of too big to ignore, and then everybody started copying us. So then people are like, wow, you don't really have to act like a professional and play everybody else's games to get noticed. You can kind of just yell and scream and do whatever the F you want. I'm trying to keep the swears down for you. And people realize that you're legit because you're not playing by anybody else's rules. Also, we have no investors, we have no publishers, we have no, we're not beholden to anybody else. We have no bosses, so we can kind of we're free to do whatever the hell we want. And it's fun. I mean, it's New Blood is literally just me and my friends making games for ourselves, and other people seem to like them as well. So and it's working for us, so we're gonna keep doing that. We don't have any grand dreams or aspirations to be some giant AAA company. We're very happy doing what we're doing and doing it the way we're doing it, and it's working. So why change?
And yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it's a kind of interesting and amusing to hear that your approach was just, if you just keep yelling, just screw it, just keep yelling until something happens, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to. I mean, it's so hard to get noticed no matter what you're doing. If it's not as I use less caps lock than I did 5, 10 years ago, but it's the same kind of thing. When it's a lot of people are just way too, I don't want to say humble or whatever, but if you make something and you don't tell anyone it exists, they're not just going to magically find it. You could make the best game in the world, but if nobody knows about it, how are they going to know about it? So it's on you to get it out there and do what you can to, it helps to be able to back up all the nonsense with really great games. If we were yelling and screaming and our game sucked, nobody would care. But as it turns out, we make really good video games as well.
And that's also a really good point. It's not like you're screaming really loudly and then throwing Redneck Rampage out there or what have you, right?
Yeah.
So, Dave, if you don't mind, how is it that you got into developing and making games?
Well, once upon a time, I was playing World of Warcraft back in like 2008, as everybody else was, and there was a guy in my guild. His name was Rip 10, and I was selling used cars back then. I was living on Long Island where I grew up, working at a used car lot, and during the day and at night I did WoW raids. That was pretty much my life. In between, I worked out, and that was like that was my life. I sold cars and I worked out and I played WoW. It was a good life. I was like 20 something. But I said, I was talking to him and he said he had a video game blog. And I went and I read the blog, and there was blogs about WoW and StarCraft and game reviews and stuff. And I was like, you looking for like writers? I can write about games. I've got some free time. I'd love to do stuff. And I started writing for him. And I did, like reviews and previews and interviews and stuff. And then I started going to like gaming events and interviewing people and, going to shows like PAX and E3 and getting into the games industry just kind of by proxy. And then I started writing for other bigger websites, like PC Gamer and Joystick and stuff like that. And I started getting pretty popular as a game blogger and media guy, I guess. Doing cool interviews and stuff. Like I'd get like sound bites from like Hideo Kojima and like that. It was cool, it was fun back in like 2010, 2011. You go to press junkets and stuff, get to interview people, get copies of games early to review. It was sweet. It was a side gig. um and then eventually I've talked about this a lot of times. One of the things I wrote about was, I tried to cover indie games and retro stuff related to Doom and stuff a lot. I would always cover what the Crow Team guys were doing on Serious Sam at the time. I remember one of my favorite reviews was Serious Sam 3 back in like 2010. But one of the things I covered was there was this team out of Denmark trying to make an Unreal Engine remake of Duke 3D, they were calling it Duke Nukem Reloaded. And that guy, as you know, was Fred Schreiber, now the VP of 3D Realms, the new 3D Realms. And yeah, and I covered them and I wrote about them and I helped them get like a lot more publicity for it and everything. And me and Fred had stayed in touch. And he knew that I was could be pretty good as a marketing and PR guy. And he reached out to me when they were trying to do like a proper Duke game with Apogee, the new Apogee. It's really confusing trying to explain like new 3D Realms and new Apogee. If you're familiar with the situation, because like neither of which is like the original company. Um, but he got me on the phone with Terry from the new Apogee, and they said, "Hey, we want to make this Duke Nukem game. Would you be keen?" being our like PR and marketing guy for it, we know really can speak to like the people who love these kind of games. And I was like, I have absolutely no interest in working on a Duke Nukem game. Zero. So this is 2011. So like hello. This is peak Duke Nukem Forever like meltdown time. I'm like, no, I am not. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in working on Duke Nukem. And as we're about to get off the phone, I'm like, hey, you guys are Apogee, right? I was like, do you guys still have like the rights to Rise of the Triad? Do you remember Rise of the Triad? And Terry's like, yeah, we can do Rise of the Triad. And Fred was like, yeah, I love Rise of the Triad. I was like, let's do Rise of the Triad. You want to do a Rise of the Triad game? And he was like, yeah, we could do that. And and fast forward 2 years, Rot 2013 comes out. It was a glorious mess. It was the first game any of us ever worked on, but it arguably kickstarted the whole retro FPS thing. Without Rot 2013, there'd be no new Apogee, there'd be no new 3D Realms, there'd be no Interceptor slash Slipgate Ironworks, there'd be no New Blood, there'd be no Dusk, there'd be no Medieval, there'd be no Ion Fury, there'd be no, none of this without Rot 2013. So we owe our janky baby from 2013 a lot of credit for getting this whole thing started. And in between then, I always worked this doing game stuff was always like, and New Blood was always a side job for me. Most people don't know that I always worked a day job up until pretty much this year, 2022. Like New Blood's a lot more popular than we are like successful financially. We hate money and all that, right? Like our games are really popular. We're popular on social media, but we didn't really start making any money until like 2020, right? Um, so I was always working other jobs. I was the VP and the business guy at Gunner for a while. If you remember the Gunner gaming glasses, those things that actually work. They ended up on Shark Tank. I was there for a while, and then I worked when I moved to New Zealand in 2019. I was working for RocketWorks, Dean Hall's studio, Dean DayZ guy, and that got me my residency here in New Zealand. And I did that for 2 years. Then I got my residency. Then I quit, and I can do New Blood full time now. So even though New Blood started in like 2014, we didn't really put out anything big until Dusk in 2018, and we really weren't making any money until Ultrakill started taking off in like 2020. And I wasn't able to quit my day job and do New Blood full time until about 6 months ago, which I'm doing now. So for people who have been following me in New Blood for a while, they're probably pretty surprised to know that like New Blood is, only really taking off now, even though people have known our games for like probably like 3, 4, 5 years. And now we're really happy and we're really comfortable. We've got a really awesome lineup of games and IPs and fun stuff, and that's the story so far.
And thank you for sharing that. And it's I didn't think about it until you kind of, I'm gonna say walked me down that timeline. But there really wasn't any like the arcadey kind of shooters, um, or Doom likes, if you will, because that's still what they are in my mind. Like the game like Dusk or what have you. I still think of them as Doom likes because they're closer to Doom than an arcade shooter like Serious Sam, for example. Um, Boomer shooters, I guess, is the more appropriate term. But you walking me down that timeline, and I was trying to think, you're right, there really wasn't many, if any, first person shooters that were trying to do that, that boomer shooter, that old style, that wasn't
No,
like
there
Serious
was
Sam or what have you.
Yeah, there really weren't in between, Rot 2013 and Shadow Warrior 2013 actually got started in development around the same time and came out around the same time. But Shadow Warrior was a bit more linear and more, of a it was retro, but it didn't have the retro level design, kind of similar to Flying Wild Hog's previous game, Hard Reset. And that was pretty much all we had at the time. Strafe came along in like 2015, 2016 and had the retro look, but it was a roguelike with randomized level design. So we really didn't get back to the carry 9 weapons at a time, have handcrafted levels, have a banging soundtrack, and that kind of stuff until, Dusk in 2016, which is why I think the original reveal of Dusk went so crazy. We didn't expect that. Um, And it's finally like there. I remember all the stories we got back then. It's like there's this new game coming out. It's like Doom and Quake and Redneck Rampage and all this stuff. And I was like, wow. And now, obviously, fast forward 5, 6 years from 2016, and there's more retro shooters than you literally can't count them. They're everywhere. So yeah, there was. I mean, you got to remember, in around like in the mid 2000s to the mid 2010s, shooters were just linear, man. It was all Call of Duty type stuff, and then like the craziest game we got was something like Bulletstorm, and Bulletstorm was even just like it was a really linear cinematic game that had like a cool shooting and point system, but it was mostly the same Unreal Engine, bloomed out, go into a new area, shoot a bunch of guys, go into another area, shoot a bunch of guys, a cool set piece thing happens. It was still very much a 2010 era shooter, and we were getting and there was, I love a good linear story based thing. I miss games like Raven used to make stuff like Singularity, and stuff like that. Obviously, games like Half Life. I love a good linear story based shooter if the mechanics are good and the story's good, the set pieces are fun. But there was nothing. There were no Doom likes around then. So like until Dusk came around, obviously after Rise of the Triad, there was nothing going. But I think I've talked about this a lot. Everything goes in cycles. It was bound to happen one way or another. Like if we didn't do it, somebody else would have done it. And obviously the Doom modding scene never stopped. Doom modding is bigger than ever, and it was. I don't think it's ever really slowed down. Same with Quake and other games. But modding isn't mainstream. It's never going to be mainstream. You can tell people all day to play mods, and they just won't. They just want to play new games. So now there's new games for them to play, while they still refuse to play mods.
Eh, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and I being one of those people that you are directly speaking at, that I don't want to say I refuse to play mods, but it's one of those things where um I don't. I
You
know
just
they
can't be
exist.
bothered.
Sorry?
You just can't be bothered.
I I don't. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is. I have loaded up some GZ Doom mods. I think it's the same as like everyone else that tried to play some Doom mods. Popped up Brutal Doom or what have you, and did a few of them. But at the end of the day, it's just sometimes I just wanna. I don't want to have to manage mods. I don't want to have to manage like a load or any of that, whatever it is today. So yeah, at the end of the day, I just can't be bothered.
Yeah.
Now, now, Dave, I don't know how this question is going to work for you just because of how you got from point A to point B. However, are there any like key core words of wisdom that you could share from your experiences that might help someone else looking to maybe follow in your footsteps?
Uh, don't, don't, don't get into games. Don't do this, especially with like retro shooters, man. It's not like if you're, well, first of all, if you're getting into games to like make money or like win awards or any bull like that, you're doing it for the wrong reason. If you're getting into games because you think there's something missing and you want to make something that you yourself wish somebody else would make, then yes. At New Blood, we make games, the kind of games we make, because nobody else was doing it, and they're still not. Nobody was making retro shooters that we wanted, so we made our own. And then nobody was making, indie immersive sim stealth games like we wanted, so we're making our own. You know, um, if you're getting into games to try and create something that you think you're really gonna like and that other people are really gonna like, then yes, you're in it for the right reasons. If you're trying to start like an indie publisher, with I'm making air quotes, so you can make money, then I don't like you. If you're trying to start some sort of indie publisher because you want to help games get noticed, then I do like you. If you're out here trying to take 50, 60% from some guy who's got a cool looking game because they don't know any better, then you're a bad person. If you're, yeah, that's if you're, yeah, if you want to do business in games, because games are a business, you should be in it for the right reason, or else go sell. I don't know, go do something else. Go, if you're in this to make money, or I don't know, then why? It's way too hard for the for the return. It's not a cash crop. Video games, go sell weed. It's legal now. It's if to follow in our footsteps, I would say, um don't try to be better than someone else. Try to be different. Try to do something that somebody isn't doing, or even if it's just a little twist on it. A lot of the games we do, they're super derivative, right? We take the best parts of the games we liked growing up and we present new experiences based on those ideas that worked so well back then and still work that well. Great game design does not age. Does not age because it is great in every way. Great sprite work does not age. Great animation does not age. Great game design does not age. So yeah, and neither does being a good person. Does not age.
Thank you. There's nothing else I want to say to that. That is very good words of wisdom. So thank you for sharing that. I think it makes perfect sense, and yeah, thank you. That is wonderful words of wisdom. Now, Dave, I am curious just because, obviously from what I can tell, you're a little older than me, so I don't exactly know how this answer is going to go. However, you know, did you have a favorite game when you were a kid, and what game would that might have been?
My favorite game as a kid. It depends on what you mean when you say kid. So I'm 38 now. My favorite game of all time is Link to the Past. So we can, speaking of red tunics, I think that counts. That came out in what, 92, and I was 8 years old. So yeah, that works. We'll say that. We'll say Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, aka Zelda 3. Nobody calls it that.
Um, I'm not going to be pedantic and try and say one way or the other, but you're right. No one does call it that, and I've never thought about, never thought about the implications of it. But Link to the Past is a fantastic game. I'm not gonna knock it. It is, in my terms, my favorite Zelda game. I'm 34. It was the first Zelda game that clicked with me on a personal level as opposed to a nostalgic level. Um, I actually didn't learn about Zelda 2 existing until I'd say like 10 years later. Um, just because I'd never seen it. And, in my case, the internet really wasn't prime for ROMs or emulators or what have you if you didn't know what you were doing or looking for. Um, do you mind speaking to what it is about Link to the Past that, makes it hold such a place in your heart?
I think it's a perfect video game. The design is perfect, the music is perfect, the sprite work is perfect. Everything is there. It is a perfect video game. There is not a bad thing about The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. It is perfect in every way. It is timeless. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's very, very, what's the word I'm trying to think there? Very concise way to answer. And, yeah, anyone who hasn't played it, they're definitely missing out. But you're right. There's very little that I personally could think to even speak ill of it for. Um, when I was the only thing I can say that child me did not understand was when the witch did when you got the magic upgrade and you got magic items cost half as much. I thought I actually lost half my magic and was really upset for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Um, that's the only thing that I can speak ill to was I was an idiot and didn't read properly when things were being said. So other than that, no, yeah, it's a it's a perfect game, and I think I agree with that. I think everyone should play it. I am curious, have you played the 3DS sequel to it?
Yes, Link Between Worlds. And Link Between Worlds is arguably a better game, but only because it stands on the shoulders of the original.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think I could have phrased it any better, but you're right. Yeah, I agree. I played that one as well. It's a fantastic game, and had A Link to the Past not existed, I don't think it would have been held as high in regards, in my opinion. But you know, when you're what's the word? When you're starting at like the 50-yard mark, it's very easy. Or the 50-meter mark, it's very easy to complete that 100-meter ahead of everyone else, right?
I think so. It's, I think it took the best. I have no idea why they haven't, ported it to Switch or anything. It's crazy. It's been, God, what, 10 years? It's yeah, it's arguably it takes all the best parts of the design and I think makes it even better, but only because it builds on the original. Yeah, it's at this point it's like forgotten. It's crazy. Nobody talks about Link Between Worlds, and it's yeah, they really need to get on like it's a finished game. How hard could it be to re-release it for Switch? Is Link
Yeah.
Between the Past even on Switch?
Um,
On the Nintendo thingy?
I want to say yes. It has to be. It has to be.
Yeah, it's on the SNES thing.
If it wasn't, I would be very confused,
Yeah, I
shocked.
mean, dude, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm never surprised at anything Nintendo does.
Um, yeah, that's also very true. I have very diverse opinions on Nintendo, and the short and long of it is, yeah, it's Nintendo's gonna do what Nintendo's gonna do, and Nintendo uh does not subscribe to the same logical mindset that I think 90% of the gaming world, if you will, subscribes to. So yeah, you're right. It would not have been a shocking thing in after you mentioned that, it wouldn't have been shocking. I think about it. And I also agree. It's weird that they haven't started porting those. They did that with Link's Awakening, and I personally thought that was going to lead into this kind of weird renaissance of them taking the old Zelda games and putting them into that engine. And uh, regardless of your feelings on that specific animation style or design style for it, the engine was there, so they could have tweaked it. And I'm honestly shocked that we haven't seen the Oracle games or any other older Zelda games just being updated to a newer engine that I would assume might be a little easier than going from scratch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
So, Dave, I am curious, and I don't know how much of A Link to the Past will tie into this, considering what New Blood Interactive is and what you're making, and as well as, some of the things I have read on Twitter. So I don't know exactly how, I'm not really prepared for where this will go. But what is it that makes gaming enjoyable to you?
Uh, I don't know. I haven't played a video game for enjoyment in so long because we're always so busy working on them. What makes gaming enjoyable to me? Lots of things. I don't know. The sense of pride and accomplishment you get from beating a boss in Elden Ring. I platinumed Elden Ring this year, which is wild considering how busy I am. I don't know. What makes gaming enjoyable to me? I mean, I know what makes, you know, releasing games enjoyable. Seeing other people react react the way you hope they will to something you put in a game is the best feeling. Um, Playing games, I don't know. I hate video games.
Uh, fair enough. And if you'll allow me to ask this question, just because um, I do my best sometimes to not ask questions involving people's children. However, on the topic of platinuming Elden Ring,
Yeah.
I believe I saw one of your tweets was while you were trying to do a bunch of the bosses, I'm gonna say your fan club, um,
Yeah.
or your peanut gallery was more of a fan club for the bosses than you. How
Yeah.
how did that work for you in the end?
Good. I mean, listen, I think a lot of the reason I got the game done is because like I would tell our son that like, hey, you want to watch me play Dragon Game? And he'd be like, yeah, I love Dragon Game. That's what he calls Elden Ring. And it was fun because it was something we could do together. And I would actually keep his attention for a while, except when I was trying to do a boss and he'd be like jumping up and down in front of the TV, and he's got to hit you with the hammer, and I'm like, yeah, I know, bro. I'm aware he's going to hit me with the hammer. But yeah, it was fun. It was a good bonding experience. It's always good when you can, play something with your kid that's not, SpongeBob or Peppa Pig related.
You know, and that is very fair, and it's good to hear that you took it in stride. Just because, you know, I don't have children, so I can't speak to how I would react, but I would hope that I would personally take it in stride, um, and not be frustrated. I don't, like I said, I don't have kids, so it's hard to put myself in that position and even, you know, imagine. But it's it's good that the your fan club made it enjoyable for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Dave, I do want to ask this, and this is because, you know, you know, you're New Blood Interactive. You're publishing games, and you know you've already said, you know, the games that you make or publish or what have you are the games that you and your friends would like to play. You know,
Yeah.
and you know one of the games that you're working. I apologize. I don't remember the title of it right now. But it's, you know, the a Fallout, you know, inspired game. Outside of you know, the outside of everything that you've already done, and I'm not trying to say, you know, oh, what do you got in the bag. It's more of a, you know, as you progress, is there like a type of game that you have in your mind that, you know, in the future that you are hoping that you one day might be able to work on? And if you're like, I'm not answering that question, by all means, I understand. Feel free just to say I'm not answering that question, because the position you are in. But if you will humor me, you know, is there a game in the far off future that you are hoping that you will have the freedom to, you know, to kind of make?
I mean, yeah. So, like, our RPG, obviously, our car combat game, the stuff we've been teasing. Yeah, our dream at New Blood is to work on like one game together at a time instead of like six games across like five small teams. Um, yeah, but other than the stuff we're working on, not really. I mean, we want to do, lots of stuff. Obviously, at some point, we want to do Dusk 2 and a Medieval 2 and all that kind of stuff, but that's so far off. We still got to finish Ultrakill and Gloomwood. We just got Faith out. We got to get Fallen Aces into early access. I want to get some solid work done on the RPG this coming year, and obviously the car combat game. Our top-down shooter is really far along. By the time we properly reveal that, it'll be like ready to release. That's the plan with that one. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's a pretty full plate as far as I'm concerned. We don't want to publish anyone else's games anymore. We don't have the time or the desire. We do it all ourselves. There's every once in a while I see a really awesome game that I would love to work on. Stuff like Death Trash or Conscript or Dread Delusion. Games that are really awesome and would be really cool New Blood games. But like, at that point, we'd be more of a publisher than a developer, and we've moved away from that to focus on our own stuff that we build internally, stuff like Gloomwood and Fallen Aces. Yeah.
And you know, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And speaking of, you know, Gloomwood and Fallen Aces, the immersive sim, what is your, if I can ask this, what is your opinion on like the future of Sims? Because when I spoke with Dylan, ages ago now about Gloomwood, um, one of the questions I had for him was, you know, if the market was ready for immersive sims. And I think since then we've seen some more being announced. Um, and more like kind of coming out or what have you. I'm just curious, you know, how do you, wow, um, for immersive sims, you know, because you guys have, you know, two coming out. Um, what is it? Wow, sorry, I'm really butchering this question.
It's
Um,
all right.
how do you feel about the future of them? Like, do you think we're kind of almost at that point where we're going to see more being announced, or do you think we are? Do you think we still have a ways to go before we see it kind of hit its heyday in the same way that boomer shooters have kind of hit their heyday?
I think so. I mean, I could make the obvious look, the obvious joke that like, well, now that New Blood's made one, everybody else is just going to copy us. It's different because immersive sims are obviously a lot harder to make than a traditional shooter, right? Making a stealth game, making a game where everything's pretty much interactable and all, there's all so many systems working all together all the time, doing things that you wouldn't expect. that's the beauty of an immersive sim, but also why they're so hard to make and why they're so rare. I mean, who makes them? There's Arcane, and that's it, basically. They're a pretty cursed genre. I mean, I didn't even know what they. I used to call them FPS RPGs as a kid. I didn't heard nothing about immersive sim until I started working with Dylan. I'm like, that's a terrible name for a genre of game. Can we call them something else? Um, Immersive Sim's an awful name. People don't like Boomer Shooter. I love Boomer Shooter. People are like, "Oh, this is stupid. They should call them Gen X shooters." Shut up. How lucky are we to have like a name, a genre nickname for our games that is like fun and good. So yush. Um, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, we're busy with Gloomwood and Aces, which are two very different takes on the immersive sim, but I think we'll see more of them. There's a lot of indie ones, being worked on now. I loved Deathloop, but it was, in terms of immersion and, interactivity, it was a big step backwards from Prey. And Prey didn't get the respect that it deserved until like 5 years later when it was too late. And now they're working on Redfall, a game which I have like zero interest in. So is Arcane gonna ever make a proper immersive sim again? Are we ever gonna get something like Prey or Dishonored again, or who knows? So maybe it'll be all indies from here on out. But I think we're gonna keep getting good indie ones for sure. Have we seen the peak? I don't know. Um, I know Gloomwood's it's gonna be a massive undertaking to keep, raising the bar and, um, meeting people's expectations with the rest of the game. So by the time we're done with Gloomwood, who knows where indie immersive sims will be or AAA immersive sims. I mean, we're just glad that people like Gloomwood, that people like Fallen Aces, that people at Arcane, play Gloomwood and stuff. That's so cool. Um, so when Dylan inevitably gets hired by Arcane in France, who knows what they'll be working on by then.
And thank you for answering that. And it's just always an interesting thing to me, just the topic of immersive sims. And as a quick sidebar, I I agree with the boomer shooter statement that you made, and that it's fantastic. It's a fun way to just to say to it's a like you said exactly. It's just shut up, leave it alone. It's great. Um, and it wasn't it actually it was kind of the same thing. It wasn't until I was getting ready to talk with Dylan about Gloomwood that I went, oh, this immersive sim, that's the right word. And
Yeah,
because in my mind, with Deus Ex, that was an FPS RPG. Like that was in the
yeah, that's what
same
we called them back then.
like it was in the same vein as like Morrowind or as Oblivion or whatever. In my world, in my mind, those are, well, not first person shooters, but like they existed in that same sphere. um so I agree, it would be it would be amusing if the immersive sims got a fun title that they can be referred to as, instead of that weird mouthful that is immersive sim that uh, sometimes make people look at you sideways.
Yeah,
Now, Dave, I don't want to take up too much more of your time just because you're a busy guy. Um,
yeah, I gotta. I'm still moving out of the old house, and today's my last day to get the rest of the crap out of there, but it'll get done.
oh, yeah, best of luck to that. Um,
Thanks. And then the cleaners are coming tomorrow because I ain't cleaning that mess.
yeah, I can definitely relate to that. It's easier to let someone else deal with it um, than it is to worry about it yourself and let like a landlord or whatever get mad at you. Um,
Yeah, so I can get
but get your
my
deposit back.
deposit back. Yeah.
um, now, before I let you go, though, if you have just a few more minutes to spare, I am curious, what is it outside of games? Do you have any other hobbies outside of video games?
Outside of video games, hmm. I don't know. According to what I was doing this morning, gardening. is a hobby. What do I like doing outside of games? I'm a drummer, my drums are all in storage. Actually, my electronic drum kit's in my office here, stacked up behind me in this mess of an office of mine. Um, yeah, I'm a drummer. I miss playing the drums. Cars are a big hobby of mine. I got a bunch of old cars in different states of disrepair. Some are in decent shape, some are in less than decent shape. Yeah, I like working on old cars, playing drums. Um, yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Well, I best of luck for the unpack and getting back to your drums. And also best of luck with the sorted amount of cars that you have to get running.
Yeah.
Um, and as I said before that question, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. However, if there is anything else you want to discuss, a cool game, what else you guys are doing, or something you just feel more people are aware of, by all means, please, the floor is yours, as well as let everyone know where they can find more information about you, which I'll include in the episode description.
So we're super busy. We just put out Faith, The Unholy Trinity. You can get it on Steam and GOG and Itch, and it'll be coming to consoles soon. So if you're looking for a spooky game, don't let the Commodore 64 Atari style graphics fool you. It is very, very scary. Gloomwood in early access just got a nice big update. Blood Moon difficulty. We're working on Dusk HD and the SDK and Steam Workshop. I swear. A medieval, The Black Labyrinth is coming out. A medieval VR is coming out. Fallen Aces Early Access is coming out. Ultrakill's getting the P2 and new secret level update soon. Rise of the Triad, the Ludicrous Edition, the proper remaster from us and Night Dive Studios is coming next year. Busy, busy, busy. You can find it all at wehate.money. We sell a bunch of merch at NewBlood.Store.com. You can check out a lot of fan art at NewBlood.Gallery. And you can follow me on Twitter at your own peril at Dave Oshry.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. I'll make sure all of that is in the description for you. And if there as it wasn't anything else, I'll let you get on with your day.
All right. Thanks, man. Good talking to you.
You as well, Dave. And thanks again for making time to have this conversation with me. And thank you for joining us on the Red Tunic podcast, as well as a special thanks to Ronald Jenkins for the use of the music from the title track from Roads Deep. And if you like this podcast and want to support it and help it grow, please subscribe or follow me on Twitter at Red Tunic Podcast to receive the latest episode and news, and be sure to share if those you think might also enjoy it. Thanks. Until next time.